Hi, welcome back. Been talking to you about how to make this crochet slouch bag using the Stylecraft 100% organic cotton yarn that we've got here. And if you watched the first video, I was just going to run another round of two treble clusters into it. I've actually run 2 more rounds in there, so you can see the definite shape of the hexagon that we've got here. So each of these sets is 2 trebles. Each corner or each angle has got 2 sets of trebles separated by 1 chain, but along the straight edges I haven't put a chain in there. And the reason that we've cut down on the number of chain stitches between the sets of trebles is to make sure you've got a nice flat hexagon. Now I'm going to spoil that nice flat hexagon by running a ring of 2 pairs of trebles around here with no corners, because that's going to start the rounding up process. So grab yourself another colour, join it where you like, a corner space is always good, and join your yarn and then run 2 chain stitches, 1, 2, to bring you up to working height, and then work the second treble next to it. And I'm going to do these trebles with no spaces in between whatsoever. If you tend to run your tension very tight, you might want to put a chain in between each one. But I tend to work, I'm much more relaxed with my crochet now. Especially now I'm using an ergonomic hook, because you've probably realised by the copper bangles, of which I have many, I've got carpal tunnel syndrome in this hand. But you don't even have to grip an ergonomic hook. It just sits in your hand really nicely. So there's much less fatigue. And because this hand is looser, this hand holding the yarn has automatically become looser, my tension is pretty good. So I've just found my way to my next angle, and instead of doing what you would normally do, which is a chain and another set of trebles in there, I'm going to ignore the fact that that is an angle and just carry straight on to the next set. So as I say, no spaces in between your pairs of trebles. So I've reached the end now of my hexagon. I'm just going to join this back up with a slip stitch like we normally do, and then an extra chain for security, just because I'm always fearful my work will come undone. And as you can see, what's happened now is just by running those sets of trebles without the corner spaces or the chains in between, it's starting to round out your hexagon. But if we carried on like that, it would become very, very tight. Now what you want is, when you fold your hexagon in half, ideally what you want is it just to tip up at the ends. If you fold it in half and you find that your ends are tipping down, it means that your outer ring is too baggy, and there's not a lot you can do about that, because believe me, when I made this bag, I'd done about 20 rows and it was too baggy, and I had to rip the whole lot out again, which was soul destroying to say the least. So just check that along the base fold your edges are just tipping up, because what that will mean is that your bag will form a nice gentle bowl shape. So we now need to repeat the process of doing your sets of trebles, 2 sets in a corner, 2 sets in an angle separated by a chain, and then 2 sets on every flat side with no chain. And we'll do that for a few more rounds to give the bag enough perimeter, as it were, to increase the diameter without it being too tight. So let's grab a pink. And this time, to stop this bag turning back into a hexagon, instead of working your corner spaces where you have here, work it somewhere else. Work it anywhere else, but not on the corner. because what that will then do is it will prevent your bag trying to form a hexagon again. You're going to put that additional angle on a flat side of the bag, and although it sounds weird to start with, the more rows that you do and the more you spread out where you put your pairs of stitches, the rounder your bag will become. What you do need to do is you need to remember where you need to put your next angle. Provided you remember how many flats there are between your angled stitches. So there were two flats. This time you're going to need 3 flats. That sounds really weird. It will all make sense in a minute. So there's 3 single clusters, and this is where your corner was. If you go up the row diagonally, you've got 1 set and then a corner. So this is where your corner is, 1 set, so your next corner goes here. But with any project, I mean, a lot of it is trial and error. And crochet is one of those things, even if you forget what you're doing halfway through the middle of a project, it's very easy to sit and count where you were, what you were doing, especially with something like a DK cotton, like the Stylecraft yarn I'm using. It's nice and clear to see where your stitches are and what stitches you've been doing. And, you know, you can see where your mistakes have been far more easily. So I'm just going to carry on with this row. So I'm going to do an angle pair of clusters, and between each angle pair of clusters I'm going to have 3 pairs of clusters. So I've reached the end of my row. Just going to join it with a slip stitch and a chain. And when you get to sizes like this, it might be worth, just before you trim your yarn, just checking the symmetry of your shape. So you can see where I had a pair of treble clusters, and just check that they're all sitting the right way. I mean, I've done it before where I know I've got 3 stitches in between, or 3 clusters in between each angle, and then I've come to the end and I've only got 2 spaces left, and it's like, well, how have I done that? But it's because I'd put 4 in by accident halfway around the ring. So it's always worth double checking it before you trim your yarn off, because there's nothing worse than having to reattach yarn through the middle of a project. And then ideally what I would do is I would run, well, for example, on the bottom of this bag, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, I ran 18 rows. So there's another 12 rows on here. So it would be another row of just clusters, and then a row of clusters with angles for another 6 sets of rows. There's not enough space on a memory card to actually watch me do all of that. But what happens in the end is you can see that hexagon, even though we've got the angles here, it's starting to round out. So here is one I made earlier in true Blue Peter fashion. And you can see the bottom of that is actually starting to round out really nicely. So come back and see us in the third part, and I'll show you how you then make the sides of your bag. Click here to see the next part of the video. And if you've enjoyed videos by the Crafts channel, hit the like button. Want to see more of us? Then click subscribe. See you next time.